All right, hello again. So in this video, we're going to go over some responsive layout examples, some responsive Flexbox layout patterns. Some people call them patterns, examples, just things that people do, people or AIs, I guess, do when they're making layouts. So this is where we're going to make something like this. So this looks a lot like maybe another video you've seen, just a basic 2-column thing, but you can change the width on this. This is done a little bit differently maybe than that one. If you've seen that. If you haven't seen it, don't worry about it. This one has 3 equal columns, the lovely yellow one. They're all responsive, so if I resize, they all become single column, which is very typical pattern for mobile, right? Mobile first means it's columns, or it's going to be single column probably, and then go to multiple columns. This one has, layout 3 has 2 side columns that are kind of fixed, and the middle one stretches or compresses depending on how much space we have. And then the 4th one has a content area on the left, which is wider than the sidebar on the right. And if we get to a certain width, it turns into a single column. And that one doesn't use media queries, I don't think. So some of these use media queries, some don't. So you should have some familiarity with that. And you should have some familiarity with Flexbox. So hopefully you've seen stuff on that or done stuff on that already. I'm assuming you have, because you're all smart and good people and everything. Okay, so we're going to look down about line 71, 73, where it says add code here. That's the clue to add the code there. And then some of these use IDs and some use classes. Oh, I was going to show you what were in these. So they're all kind of similar. They all have a div with a class of wrapper1, and then they have kind of a header area and a nav, and then an article area with 1, 2, or 3 columns, and then a footer, and then it just repeats basically, mostly. I already have the classes on everything for you, so I'm not going to have you guys go down in the HTML and add the classes, but that's how we're activating things, is usually with classes. So like this one has a call class on it and one called equal columns. So that's what we're doing up at the top. So if you were doing this yourself, you'd have to obviously put that stuff in there yourself, right? But okay, so I think we're ready to go. So we're gonna go to line 73, and the first one is called article columns, I think. And we're gonna turn that into, that's this guy right here. We're gonna turn that into this is the wrong one. This is the one we're working on. We're gonna turn that into a flex container. How do we do that? I think you guys know that, hopefully, but we're gonna say display flex, and that makes it a flex container. So what happened? It went from 2 block elements that stack. That's the normal thing that block elements do. And then it now is a row, and it's going left to right, and they've gotten more narrow. So they're no longer sort of block elements, they're flex items, basically. And then we're gonna change that back into a column because we want it to be mobile first, meaning it's gonna, by default, it's gonna look like a column. Well, that's not really what that means, but it's close enough. So we're gonna say, what did I put columns there for? I'm gonna put in flex direction and column. And now it goes back to a column, so we're back where we were, right? And then we're gonna add a little gap in there, just some space. You don't have, I mean, we're doing this in the video, you don't have to have a space, but wanted to put this one have a space. I'm gonna put 1 rem, which is about 16 pixels in this case. So that's kind of like margin. You've probably seen that before. That made that space between the columns. Yeah, kind of like margin would, right? But these aren't block elements anymore, so we're using gap to do that. All right, so now let's go down where it says media queries. So we're gonna use media queries now to change right now it's gonna stay as columns, which doesn't really work, right? We're gonna get really long line lengths and things. So we wanna change into columns, multiple columns when we get wider. So we're gonna use media queries for that. We're gonna say at media screen. There's not 3 R's in screen. And min width and we're gonna do 768 pixels, which is pretty common breakpoint. So So something like that, right? So we said at media screen and min width 768. So I think you've seen this before again, but this means everything between these brackets, these braces, they're braces, right? Did you ever have braces? I had braces, they're not fun. These braces are fun. So this means if it's a screen and the minimum width is 768, that means above 768. So we're doing mobile first, which means by default, it's gonna be the single column, and then we're gonna change it into multiple columns. So everything in here is not gonna work until we get to a width of 768, and it's a screen. It's not printed or something. So now we're gonna do article columns again. I'll just copy this to be safe and put my other bracket in there, and then put my styles in here. So we're gonna say flex direction row, because we want it to be a row when we get wide. So let's see if that actually worked. Yeah, so now it's a column, now it's a row, right? Okay, and then we're gonna say, we're gonna try some justify content. Let's do justify content, and let's do try some different ones just for fun. Let's do space between. And I'm gonna have to make this bigger to even see this work. And yeah, so right now we're getting space between. I haven't done the size, so I should do the size first, because right now they're getting us the size of the content. So let's go ahead and skip down there and do that so that we can see what's going on a little bit better. So let's go right down below that. We'll come back to this in a second. So I'm going to size the columns now. Let's do pound col 1. That's the name of those two or the first column. And then I'll put a comma and I'll do pound col 2. Since we're gonna put the same styles on both, we can just do it that way. Then I'm gonna say flex, which is the flex shorthand. And I'll go 0, 1, and let's try 48% first. So now this looks very much like another video. Unless you didn't see that, then it doesn't. But what we're saying here is the default for the flex shorthand is 0, 1, and auto. That means you're not supposed to grow. This is the shorthand for flex grow, flex shrink, and flex basis. Grow means, are you allowed to grow? Shrink means, are you allowed to shrink? And flex basis is kind of like an optimal length or height, depending on if it's a column or a row. It's not really a width. And it's not a height, it depends on the direction. So since this is a row, we're saying you can't grow, but you can shrink basically, and we want the default, the optimal size or the intended size to be 48%. So that gives us that little space in between. We actually probably didn't even need the gap in there, but we have it in there anyway. So that is that part. So now we can see how that's working. Let's go to, let's change that. I'm just gonna copy that line and I'm gonna leave it in here, which is probably not great to write it that way, but I'm gonna change the size to 40 so that you can see how we can play with the justify content just a little bit on this one. And I know you've probably seen this in another video, but I thought I would throw it in here real quick. So now it's 40, we've got space between, so that extra space, justify content is what happens to the extra space, right? So we have space between, so that's going in between, right? Let's try space around and just see what this looks like. So I'm gonna say space around. Now we've got space here on the side and then 2 of those units there and then 1 on the side. So that's what space around looks like. Let's look at space evenly, which is a little bit newer one. That makes the same space there, there, and there. So you really have a lot of control about how you space things out. Or we could say justify content and do center. And that's not even all of them, but that's probably the most common ones. If we say center, they go to the center. So sometimes you'll see layouts where you'll have like kind of full width on a lot of the stuff, and then you'll have some narrower columns, and then it'll get wide again. Yeah, it's up to you. So it's very, very flexible that way. Oh, it has flex in the name. I've done that joke before, I think. So I'm going to comment these out because it's just bothering me that we're overriding. Whoops, we're overriding the. I'm doing Command or Control / to comment that out. We're overriding the previous one, right? Because of the cascade or the specificity. If you write the same styles after the last style wins, right? This overrides that overrides that, etc. So I'm just commenting these out just so it doesn't look like completely weird, like we went crazy. I did go a little crazy, but I don't want anybody to know. All right, so we'll leave it like let's put it back to space between actually. So let's leave that one here because that's the one that probably is going to be more typical. Actually, no. Yeah, let's leave it there. Fine. It doesn't matter. It does matter, but we're going to leave it at space between. So I uncommented that one, and now it's space between. All right, so that's fine. Plenty on that one. All right, let's do the next one, example 2. You're like, that took too long. It did take a little bit too long. So we have add code here. We're in number 2 here, and it's already just got a color. That's all it's got, and that's this beautiful yellow one here. Not very beautiful, but it's there. So this one has an ID as well. We're going to do article columns 2. And this one we're going to say display flex again. So same thing. We're turning it into a flex container. Now we've got it going sideways, so we know something's working, right? Let's do flex direction column again for the mobile. Maybe I can make this a little smaller so you guys can see. There we go. Okay. And then we're going to put the gap in again on this one anyway. And that gives us our little space there. All right, so now we're going to add our media queries again. So I'm going to go up and just steal this line, just this one line. Be careful when you copy, even from yourself, especially from yourself, maybe, because if you copy a mistake, right, then you copied the mistake. And you're going to use a mistake again. So be careful with that. So I'm going to go down here and put me at media screen and min width 768, and then make sure I have my other bracket in there. See, it messed me up. I get another bracket in there. But we're doing the same thing because we're using the same breakpoint. All right. So go inside of there, and we're going to put article columns 2 again. And make sure your brackets are right. I got my purple ones inside of my yellow ones. That's nice and pretty. And then we're gonna say make it to a row again. So we're gonna say flex direction row. And now it's a row again. Similar to last time, or maybe the same thing. We're gonna do justify content, and we'll do space between. So that makes the space between. And then we want to do equal columns on this one. So that's the second one, right? So if I look down here just real quick, just to show you what's going on, this is the one that has 3 classes on it. It says they say equal columns. So they have 2 classes. One is called call, which is just like some color and things. And then one has equal columns. So let's go down here inside of here and do, remember it's a class, so it's dot equal columns. And did I do a dash or an underscore? I can't remember. Let's look. Dash, equal columns dash. I could have copied it, right? That's where copying maybe helps. So I've got dot equal columns, and I'm gonna say flex basis 100%. And now you can see, if you guys saw that, I've got 3 equal columns that are 100% until I get below 768, and I get 1 column with 3 rows. And then I get, right here, I got 1 row with 3 columns, right? And they're equal. Why are they equal? Because we basically said, we'd like you to be as big as you can. It's like the army, be all you can be a little bit. I think I used that joke before too. So we say flex best is 100%. They're all going to get as big as they can and fill that space up. So that's pretty cool, right? Even if I think I have another one in here, right? Let's see. Yeah, I've got another column in here. So if you uncomment this, Command or Control / look at that. I just added a column and I didn't have to do anything. It just automatically broke up that space into 4 columns. It's kind of too many because it's too narrow, but you get the idea. So I will comment that back out because that's bothering me. Or if I comment out this one, I won't mess it up. You got the idea. You guys got it. Okay, so that's Flex Basis 100%. There is another way to do this. That it's pretty common. You'll see people do Flex 1. And there is another video about this because this gets a little bit strange. The way that Flex Basis and Flex Grow and Flex, this basically means you can grow. So if I comment this out, it should probably look the same, but it's actually doing it a different way. You see how it looks the same? When you say Flex 1, you're basically saying, yes, you can grow, and they will grow to fill up the space. You're not telling them to be full width if they can. You're just saying you can grow to fill up the space. But it does change some of the other values for Flex Shrink and Flex Basis when you use this shorthand. So yeah, I'm going to comment that out. I'm going to use the Flex Basis one. No good reason. I'm just going to use that one because it's a little easier to get, I think, maybe for our purposes. But you'll see both of those used, both those techniques. All right, so that's end of number 2. Let's go to number 3. So it says add code here. Okay, I'm getting the hang of that. This one's going to be article columns 3. So I'm going to say article. If I could type columns 3. And in this one, I'm going to put display flex again. Maybe I should start copying this. Nah. We'll type it. And we're on this one here, this third one here. And we're gonna say flex direction column again. I could start copying some of this, huh? You guys can if you want. Flex direction column. And we're gonna say, give it a gap one more time. 1 EM or 1 rem. And I think we're good with that. Now we're gonna do a media query one more time. So I'll copy this guy and paste it here. You could take this line out if you wanted to, it doesn't matter. Be cleaner. And then make sure you've got your balanced braces, right? So here's the opening brace, here's the small one. So it's the same breakpoint, I think, on this one. Oh, actually, this is different. We're gonna do 960 on this one. I worked this out ahead of time, obviously. So this time we're gonna say these styles aren't gonna kick in until we are at 960. All right, so this time we're gonna do a little bit something else. Let's take this article columns 3 and copy that and put that in here. Make sure that you got your balanced braces. So it says it's the same thing that's up here, but now we're inside the media query. So we want this article columns 3 to be a little bit different when we're above 960. So this time we're going to use the shorthand for flex flow, which if you saw this in another video, it's my favorite name for a property, the flex flow. And we're going to say row and no wrap. So that's the shorthand for flex direction, which is row, and then no wrap means don't wrap, which means you all have to stay on the same line, so it shouldn't wrap, right? And then we're going to say justify content space between again, which we've been doing. Yeah, there we go. And then now we've got to go down and make some different sizes for these guys. We're going to use the flex shorthand property. So these selectors are a little bit tricky. So we'll see if I can type this without messing up. I'm going to put in article columns 3 space and then dot col1 and then put a comma and then article columns 3 space dot call 3. So we're styling the first and third columns. You could do this a different way. You could do, well, I gave them all classes, right? So if you go down here and you look at these, we're on layout number 3. Each one has a different class this time. It says call 1, call 2, and call 3. That's why we're doing this. So we're styling the first and third columns right now. So when you put a comma, of course, that means you want the same styles for both. And then dot call 1, this selector means this has to be something with a class of call 1 inside of something that is the ID of article columns 3. So it won't interfere with any other call 1. It's a more specific selector. All right, that being said, what we're going to type is flex. And we're going to say 00225 pixels. So what we're saying is we want 3 pixels. We want 3 columns, or those 2 columns, to be no grow. So flex is the shorthand again. So flex grow is 0, flex shrink is 0. So really should try not to grow or shrink. Content does affect these though, but that's what our preference is: no growing and no shrinking. And then 225 is the flex basis, which is the desired measurement, the desired width. Content does affect these though. You can see that this one's bigger actually because it has some content in it. And then let's go down below that and do, I'm going to copy this because I'm going to be lazy again. Hopefully I don't lose you guys with the copying. This one is for the second column. So this is pound article columns 3 space dot call 2. So this is the second column. And this one is going to have a different flex setting. So we're going to say flex 1 auto. And then what that does is we told it can shrink and grow. This one can shrink and grow, the center column. And then auto, that's telling it to pay attention to the content to help determine your size, kind of like that. So now we can see that those 2 side columns are 225. Hopefully they're about 225. They're kind of fixed width. We used to call that fixed width. And then the center column is liquid or changes size, right? Stretches and squishes and stretches. That's the complicated or the simple way to say it. So we've got a side column here, a center column expands to fill the space. And then when we get narrow, we get below 960, we're gonna go to single column again. Now that's pretty big to do that change, but you could obviously tweak and add some more media queries and things like that. But yeah, that works. So 2 fixed columns on the side and a stretchy one in the middle. That's the technical term, stretchy. All right, we're almost done. I know this is dragging on a little bit. Let's do number 4. And I think I'm missing the color on this one, but it probably doesn't really matter. So let's go. I'm going to do this one with no media queries. So let's do article columns 4. And we're going to say display flex. So we're on this one right here. So now this one only has 2 columns in it. If we look at it again, just to look at it real quick, it is call and then call 1 and then call and then call 2. We're on number 4. Right? Okay. So that's what's going on. Sorry if I'm zooming up and down here. So we just added display flex to make it a flex container. Then we're going to say you can wrap. Not like wrap like cool, Run DMC stuff, but different kind of wrap. We're going to say flex wrap. That means you can wrap if you need to. You can wrap if you want to. That's a song, I think, too. So this is how we're going to get around the not using media queries. Okay, so now I think that's it for that part. Now we're going to I'm going to steal this ID name. Article columns 4 and space and then dot call 1. Now we're going to say flex 1170. 70% this time. We're using percentages on this one. So that means, yes, you can grow, yes, you can shrink, and your flex basis is 70. The second one, we can copy and paste that. We're going to say article columns 4, but this one is column 2. And it's the same thing, except we want to do it 30%. So now we've got a 2 columns, and you can't, there's no gap on this one. We didn't put a gap on it. But what happens is it will shift in a second. We're going to add one more thing, but right now it's not shifting, right? So it's 2 columns, but it's stuck at 2 columns. We want it to change, and we can use min width for that. So on call 1, we're going to go back up to call 1 and say min width, and let's do 35 ch, which is characters. So characters is pretty good, is a unit that means basically how many characters can you get on the line. And that's why it's kind of good for columns, because you do want a certain width for columns sometimes in characters, right? It depends how big the text is, but it's just going to measure it makes sure the line lengths aren't too long or too short. You can use it for that. Let's put it that way. So we're going to put a min width of 35. Let's see if that actually makes see, look at that. So when we get down, when that first column, the wide one gets less than 35 characters wide, right there, it says, well, I can't be smaller than that, so now I'm going to be full width. And then it bumps the second column down to the bottom. And we also don't want this second column to get too small. Like right there, it's pretty small. So I'm going to go next to down below that one and do min width on that one and do it as a, let's do 20 characters. So now there's 2 different breakpoints, and you'd have to play with this a little bit, but now maybe that one should be a little bigger, maybe, or a little smaller, 15. Because it's breaking pretty early. Yeah, it depends. You have to use the content. Let the content be your guide on that. But basically this is saying, like, if either one of these, if this one gets smaller than 35 characters, this main area, or this one gets smaller than 15 characters, could be 20, then they won't fit anymore, basically. So they're going to go back to a single column. So there is basically a responsive little layout, right? No media queries. There's no media queries on that one, right? I thought that was kind of interesting and nice for you. Good for you. All right, so I think that is it for this one. So I hope that helped a little bit with some different possibilities to do layouts using media queries, and I will talk to you again later.